Okay. So hi. I have wanted to talk to you about a couple of things, and I thought the best way to do that was to have a video. Sometimes to do it in an email, it's very wordy, and I know that when I get emails or anything in text and it's too wordy, I tend to skim or I just don't absorb it. So I thought maybe this might be the best way to communicate some things with you guys. Sorry, I have kind of crazy hair. So one of the things I wanted to mention was the extra credit that I posted. And I just wanted to kind of give you my idea about that because I'm really excited about the possibilities of what I can do with it. And I thought, well, since I'm, wanting to see how students would respond to it and, kind of get your feedback, I thought it would be best for this time to offer it as an extra credit. And I want you to think of it as something fun. I think it's always fun to do something creative. So the extra credit, I posted it as an announcement, sent it as an email, is for you to do a YouTube, a blog, or a podcast, one of those three, and to present an a current event. If you are in my US class, then pick a US issue. It could be a domestic or international issue and talk about how it impacts the United States. If you're in Texas, then of course I'd want you to pick a Texas issue. If you wanted to pick an American or national issue, that would be okay as long as you're able to tie it back to Texas and how that would impact Texas. So my thought on this is that, I said this in the email that I'd love to do this eventually as some sort of assignment, but I wanted to see how you guys would receive it. Now, if you're looking over and you are not sure about something, or you think, I'm not as, I'm still learning to use these different social media. So if there's something that I didn't think about, please let me know so that I could maybe alter it. Or if there's some other way you can think of that would be interesting to present current events, let me know. The other thing I wanted to mention are podcasts. So for my Texas class, you have your podcast because I was able to formulate that over the semesters. I haven't taught US in a long time. I'm so excited to be coming back and teaching it. Thank you so much to my US class for being so patient with me. You will be rewarded. But the podcast for test number 2, part 2, I have no idea what happened to it. It's really infuriating because I take time to do these podcasts, to map them out, to put them together. I don't script them because there's really not a way to script them other than I use what I know is going to be on the test or what I think I want to test on. So I did have a student who sent me his questions, and I'm going to hopefully be able to use that so that I could figure out what maybe is missing. That would have been in podcast 2, part 2. But just, this is for a moment, this is for my US class only, but those are 2 chapters. Both of you have, for test number 2, 2 chapters. So my hope is, particularly in US, it's about civil rights and civil liberties. Those things are so interesting. I'm hoping even if we, for some reason, can't get podcast part 2 together, you will find that the information is not hard to look over, but I'm working on that. Okay, sorry. So let me go over something I wanted to know, and I did send this out, I think, to both classes, but I just wanted to remind you again because I want you to understand my reasoning. Now, on the podcast, I do not answer questions about specific questions given in the podcast. I don't answer them. So please don't send me an email asking me, for an answer for one of the podcast questions. The reason is because I feel like, and you'll find, I think, from students in the past, maybe from reviews that you might have read, I really feel like podcasts are incredibly helpful in guiding my students as to what they should look at to prepare for the tests. And they're pretty direct. So if I were to give answers, not only would I be inundated by students asking, possibly for a good percentage of answers to the questions, but the idea is this is a way for you to study, for you to find the answers, and they are within the text. And so I know that they are there. I try really hard not to do anything that's too obscure, and I'll work on that if there is something. Now, so I don't provide direct answers. If you have any questions about anything in general, and I give you an example in the email I sent you, then I am happy to help you understand, okay, what's the difference between an interest group and a nonprofit, or what, why do interest groups use electioneering? I am so happy to answer general questions, concepts that will help you understand anything, but not answer specifics. And I hope that makes sense. And if you're unclear, please let me know. The last thing I want to, as I'm turning and getting grades done for the classes for the discussion boards, which on the first one, it's usually the hardest because I try to give as much feedback as possible. And then after that, I can roll faster on DB2 and 3. So thank you for your patience. Texas will be done with their grades. US, you will have them done in the next 24 hours. So please be patient with me on that. And then for DB2, I actually will grade US first, my US online class first, then Texas. So US, you'll get your grades faster for DB2. I hope that makes sense. I graded Texas DBs first, then US, and in DB2 for discussion board 2, I'll reverse it to try to be fair. So just a couple of things to remind you about on the discussion boards. Please always go back and reread your material. I made this note on a lot of people's discussion boards. Make sure you're checking for problems with grammar. Use your spell check. If you look at the top of the discussion board, it has A, B, C, and a check mark. That is your spell check. So please utilize that, because it doesn't make sense, that you have a lot of misspelled words when there is the ability to spell check. A few, not a big deal. You won't have points missing, but more than a handful is not necessary. The other big thing, this is a big one that I found on a handful of students, is please don't personalize. Please make sure to use research, data, stats. Your discussion boards are research centered. You don't have an essay, which I am changing my course for for the upcoming semesters, but you don't have an essay component. You don't have short answers in your tests. So I really expect a lot on discussion boards, because there are only 3 of them, and they're not particularly difficult, except that they're, do take some time, and I expect them to be research centered, not personalized. So you shouldn't have much I believe or I think, because they're not reflective. Now, there are maybe questions in the discussion board that will specifically say, about your opinion or your thoughts. And those, of course, answer as your opinion. But other than that, you should be giving research to back up your statement. So if, you say something like, I believe that the governor has done a wonderful job, or I believe the governor has done an awful job. Okay, that's not quantifiable. I mean, it is, I guess, but it's objective, right? So if you're going to say something like that, back it up, show proof of, why are you saying this? Again, it's best just to leave those kinds of things out, because they are too subjective, and I'm not looking for subjection. I'm looking for more quantifiable items. And so one way, to avoid that, again, is by not having I. And when you do have I, if you reread it, you can always, for the most part, write those same sentences without including the word I. I believe the governor is doing a great job. Okay, instead of saying that, you could say something like, according to, and give a percentage, look it up, look up the research. According to 60% of Texans polled, they have stated that Governor Abbott is doing a great job as governor. Do you see how that is not subjective? You are quantifying it because you have data, you have a source to back that up. If you're not sure about this, please email me, let me know. You want to avoid repetition. So I see this a lot in the responses, and I know the responses can be a little bit more difficult, which is why I decided to incorporate the questions to help guide you. You can, of course, answer the questions, and then if you want to add on anything based on something that the student wrote about, you can do that as well. So please know that you can include, additional information that they didn't ask in their questions. I also sent out an email about this. Don't forget to put the 2 questions at the very top so that I can easily see what you're supposed to be answering. And I did deduct points, not very many, but a few points if you didn't add that, because then I have to go search for it, and that slows me down. And you want me to get your grades back to you as soon as possible. I want to do that as well. So that's something that was required in your instructions. So avoid repetition. And again, I'm seeing that particularly in your responses. I know you're trying to meet a word count, but more important than that is having a good, well thought out, well organized response based on answering the questions. And then again, if you want to include information that they didn't ask, you can absolutely do that. And I just repeated, even though I asked you not to. So my apologies. Here's something that I'm noticing too that goes back to the subjective. You want to avoid unnecessary wording. I call them filler words. So I write, for those of you taking the Texas class, this is my Texas textbook that I am a co-author on, and I'm really proud of the work that I've done in it. And, this is something that I learned too. It's a different set of writing, and it did alert me that you want to avoid words like a lot, really, very. Why am I putting quotation marks? I don't know. But you want to avoid those words because they are filler words, unless you can quantify that. And again, that can become subjective. So if you say a lot of people like Governor Abbott, okay, you might be able to quantify that by saying, a lot of people like Governor Abbott, according to a poll, 60%. Some people might not say that's a lot. They may say that that's a good amount of people. I mean, that's what I'm just talking about. It can be hard to measure, so it's best not to include that. So instead of saying a lot of people agree with Governor Perry, or not Governor Perry, Governor Abbott, you would say, many Texans, right? Because that's more, what's the word? That's more measurable, I guess I'm looking at. A lot is just too general. The word really or very, again, those just seem to be filler words that are trying to take up space, really not having a meaning. Okay. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm not saying that I'm not. I really am. This is something here I'm using really again. I am guilty of this. See, I said I really am guilty of this, when all I had to just say is I'm guilty of this. Adding the word really doesn't do anything to what I'm saying. Okay. So, okay, those are the basic things I wanted to remind you of in the discussion boards. Again, because I don't have the short answers or essay component, I'm looking for your writing here to be good in these discussion boards. They don't have to be great or perfect. It's really not about that. I understand about having grammatical problems here. It's things that can be easily dealt with, like the spell check, like, these words that I'm telling you about, not personalizing. And I know that can be very hard, but let me tell you why. Because we're academics, because we are in a learning environment, and all of us are political animals, and we come to the table with personal beliefs, and I am not here to indoctrinate anyone. My beliefs are mine, and I don't want to shove them on you, which that's not a part of academia. What is a part of academia is getting you to look at what is out there, what facts, what research, what absolute, I don't even know if I want to say absolutes, but what is out there. Look at it, read it, tell me what it's saying. Now, in the end, if that affects your opinion, whether enhancing it or changing it is completely up to you. But I don't want your opinion. These are not reflective. This is about what is out there. I want you to know the facts. I want you to know the research. You already know your personal opinion on the issue. You already have your personal philosophy. So it's not about that. It's about making sure that you know facts and information. And then if that enhances your beliefs or if it changes it, great. I don't win either way, except that I am looking for you to learn, right? I hope that makes sense. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. I didn't mean to ramble, but I get excited because I don't get to talk to you often. So I will see about giving you another one of these. If you think they're helpful, let me know.